Hi, here we are on the first day of class, and we're going to do assignment number 1. It's called specific shots. And the shooting of your film is due at the end of class. Now we're going to be walking around campus and taking 14 shots that will give you a variety of images to work with on your first day of printing in the darkroom, which should be a week from today. Since all of us have similar images with similar exposures, it'll make it easier to get uniform results. So let me be clear, these beginning assignments are not art. They're exercises to get you on track. We're going to remove the training wheels later. Now, if you're new to film photography or just rusty because you haven't used your film camera for years, you're going to appreciate being guided through this very structured assignment. Trust me, if I told you to just walk around and shoot pictures willy-nilly with no exposure guidance or assistance with camera settings, it would be a disaster. And that would end up slowing the class down to a crawl. In fact, we'd lose about 2 weeks if all of you started with awful negatives. I'm assuming that all of us have watched the very early video, and we've loaded our film into our cameras, and we know how to adjust the shutter speeds and the apertures. If your light meter isn't working, don't worry, because I'll tell you how to set your exposure for the 14 required shots. If you think your light meter is working, these exercises will show if it's performing accurately. It will also inform you whether your shutter is operating properly. Now we're going to be bracketing some of our shots. That means we'll take 3 exposures of each view. Exposure 1 will be the normal exposure that I'll give you. Exposure 2 will be underexposed by 1 stop, and exposure 3 will be overexposed by 1 stop. In this way, you'll have 3 exposed frames of every view. This is shot 1. This is what it's going to look like. This is a view of the library looking across the lake. So I'll give you the correct exposure for this. For this underexposed shot, I want you to speed up your shutter by 1 step. So if your first shot was at a 2/50th of a second, I want you to shoot at a 500th of a second. And then leave your aperture the same. This will give your film less light. Number 3 is an overexposure. I want you to use a shutter speed that is 1 step slower than the normal exposure, but leave your aperture unchanged. This will let more light in. Number 4, this is your first portrait shot. Position your model so half of their face is in the sunshine and half of their face is in the shadow. Move close enough to your subject so you're just getting a head and shoulders view. You'll take 3 exposures of this person. I will give you how to set those 3 exposures. In these shots, we will change both our shutter speed and our aperture, so listen carefully to follow my exposure instructions. We'll be moving into the shade of a building for these next portrait shots. This type of lighting is called open shade because the subject is not being lit by direct sunlight. These shots will be taken of you with your camera, so you'll be the model and your partner is going to be the photographer. As before, you will frame these portraits as head and shoulder shots. Because we'll be in the shade, the camera exposure will be very different. As before, we'll be changing both the shutter speeds and the apertures, and I'll give you the exposure settings when we're in that location. Number 8, take the second open shade portrait with another exposure that I will give you. Number 9, you're going to take the third portrait shot with yet a different setting that I'll give you at the time. Number 10, it's a 4th portrait shot. Again, I'll give you another exposure. And number 11, that's the 5th portrait shot. I'm going to give you yet 1 final exposure. Number 12 is a close-up shot. So let's find an object of interest that is being lit by side light, so it has both shadow and highlight on it. Get as close as your camera will allow to this subject while maintaining sharp focus. Now number 13, you're going to take a photo of the same subject, but this time you're going to have the sun coming from behind you, so the subject has no shadows on at all. We call this flat lighting. Number 14, you're going to take a photo of the same subject, so it is being hit from behind by the sun. We call this backlighting. For the rest of your roll of film, take photographs of anything you want so we can finish up this roll and unload it from our cameras. Good luck.